Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It's Nigel here once again. So this weekend is WrestleMania. So WrestleMania season is almost wrapping up. And what a interesting road it's been to WrestleMania this year. Now, one of the big facets of WrestleMania season every year, besides Cody Rhodes getting his ass kicked, is the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Now, when the inductees are announced every year, I feel like people fall into one of two camps. The first side of things, the first camp, I should say, is people who are like, oh, great, it's cool that this person is finally getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Whereas the other camp is like, hey, what about this person? Why has this person still not been inducted? They're going to miss out again this year. And admittedly, I usually fall into both. There's a lot of people who have been nominated, inducted, and everything, but not everyone, not everyone, I should say, who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame is just yet. And I get you can't induct everybody, um, but yeah. So I kind of understand both sides. And it's not even just WWE or pro wrestling. This happens in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. There's literally an entire website dedicated to people who haven't been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Granted, it's slightly outdated, but yeah, this type of stuff gets debated a lot. But something else that's usually the subject of debate that I see pop up every few years or so is, will Chris Benoit ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame? Should Chris Benoit be inducted into the Hall of Fame? Should WWE finally get rid of their decades long ignoring of his history and of his existence and finally grant him his place in the WWE Hall of Fame? And that's what I want to answer in this video is, should Chris Benoit be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? Now, truth be told, the short answer to this question is no, obviously. But we still got a video to do, so why not the long version? Now, on paper, Chris Benoit already has a Hall of Fame worthy resume to be inducted if WWE wanted to induct Chris Benoit, and they've made it clear that they don't want to over the years. They would have quite a bit to induct Chris Benoit based off of. To be honest, and this is no disrespect to anyone, there's people who are in the Hall of Fame who have accomplished less. But Chris Benoit is a former World Heavyweight Champion, former Tag Team Champion, former United States Champion, former Intercontinental Champion, former Royal Rumble winner, and was the 12th ever Triple Crown Champion. And that was just in WWE. That's not even to mention his accomplishments in WCW or ECW or even New Japan. So, Benoit, very decorated career. In fact, there's a lot of people who argue that had he not done what he done, he probably would be in the Hall of Fame already if he wasn't still wrestling. Although if Ric Flair and Rey Mysterio are anything to go by, people can still be inducted while still on the active roster. However, unfortunately, the sad reality is Chris Benoit did do what he did, and unfortunately, it's tarnished his legacy as a performer, as a wrestler. Now, if you've been on the internet for any length of time, then you probably already know the story. It's been covered to death here on YouTube, no pun intended. Very much covered extensively. Hell, even I made a video on it several years ago. It was one of my first videos on the channel and everything. In fact, I think I was still doing it when I was still posting to Facebook, my videos to Facebook. But just in case you haven't, just in case you are indeed new here, pretty much the Cliff Notes version is he murdered his wife Nancy, his son Daniel, and then himself. And unfortunately, it was such a very public thing, a very huge deal, as rightfully and understandably so, that it was something that simply couldn't be ignored and swept under the rug. Now, unfortunately, he has also been covered to death here on YouTube. WWE has a very bad habit and a very tragic history of sweeping a lot of stuff under the rug. Hell, they even kind of did it with Jimmy Snuka. some time ago for his murder charges. But unfortunately, with Chris Benoit, there was no such reprieve, especially because right before all the evidence came out, they did the tribute show to Chris Benoit, similar to what they did for Eddie Guerrero. And then once what happened was fully revealed to the public, that's when WWE officially distanced themselves, which does make it pretty awkward after the whole tribute. Even people like CM Punk and other wrestlers have said so, with Punk even crying for Chris Benoit. Of course, Johnny Nitro did replace Chris Benoit as CM Punk's opponent at Vengeance 2007, which is probably a match I'll review at some point on the channel, I'm sure of it. But yeah, so very much a public thing that can't be ignored, no matter how badly they'd want to ignore it. And in a way, it also did kind of it kind of caused them to reinforce like the wellness policy that was really he's starting to take shape in the wake of Eddie Guerrero's death. And it also raised questions about not just WWE, but professional wrestling as a whole, their history of CTE and stuff like that, and concussions and everything. Now, can you fully blame concussions on what Chris Benoit did? No. At the end of the day, he was still in control of his actions, and he still murdered his wife and his son. But the questions are very much there, and it created pretty much a major thing, a major event, if you will. Also, because of that, because it's so public, it's hard to talk about one without the other. Now, the question has been asked, can you separate the art from the artist? Should you separate the art from the artist? And admittedly, there's quite a few answers to that. My honest opinion is that it depends. Sometimes you can, sometimes it's really hard to do so. For example, if a celebrity, or like a well-known figure, is kind of rude to people, kind of mess up, kind of a jerk to people. First of all, don't be a jerk to people. But also stuff like that. Yeah, it's not the best, but you can still be like, okay, yeah, this person's kind of a jerk, kind of a rude person, but I still kind of enjoy their work. Although seeing stuff like that has impacted how some people view them. Like people have shared their stories. Like there's plenty of Reddit threads about meeting celebrities, them turning out to be like rude and everything, and it ruining their perception. But for the most part, there are a lot of celebrities that move past that, or a lot of notable people, I should say, not even just celebrities, that move past it. But then you have cases like R. Kelly, or like Bill Cosby, or in this case, Chris Benoit, where what they did was either so public or so heinous that it's really hard to separate one from the other. And to try to put yourself outside of that and look at them as objectively as possible without taking into account of what they did is very hard to do. Now, this is something that I've experienced as well. Not I haven't done anything like that, but whenever I review a match involving Chris Benoit or talk about something involving Chris Benoit, admittedly, it does get kind of difficult because even though I try to look at things as objectively as possible, and that goes for just about any performer or any wrestler that I talk about in my reviews, it is in the back of my mind of exactly what they did and the type of person they were outside of the ring, behind closed doors. And it gets kind of hard to celebrate that person or to acknowledge them because you're constantly thinking about what they did. And I think that's the pitfall, or I should say, that's the dilemma that WWE would find themselves in. If, for whatever reason, they decide, you know what, let's induct Chris Benoit in the Hall of Fame this year, it's very much going to be present in their minds and in everybody else's minds. Exactly what Chris Benoit did, the type of person Chris Benoit was. So, to try to sweep that under the rug and celebrate his accomplishments as just accomplishments without acknowledging everything else, which, like I've mentioned, WWE have done, it's very hard to do. It's almost impossible to do, especially because this is so public. Now, the Jimmy Snuka stuff, Admittedly, it's something that a lot of people do know about, but it's not as well known, I would say. It's probably not the first thing that a lot of people or the majority of people would think of it. Like I said, it's something that a good portion of people would think of. They would associate Jimmy Snuka with the murder charges and everything. But for a lot of people, they might not immediately realize that. But with Chris Benoit, there is no such reprieve when it comes to that. Excuse me. Everybody knows what Chris Benoit did. It's so associated with him, and there's so many moments. There's like full-on compilations of moves that he did where people like that probably did it like that is probably what contributed to that. What he did, his actions and everything, the CTE, even like the steroids and everything, the steroid use, which also became a big issue in the wake of his death. Like that stuff is hard to ignore, and it's hard to get away from when it comes to that. So to acknowledge Chris Benoit and to try to celebrate Chris Benoit and his accomplishments, you would also have to acknowledge that as well. Oh, and granted, when it comes to the other wrestlers and how they feel, things have been like a lot of wrestlers are pretty conflicted. A lot of wrestlers outright detest what he did. There are people like Chavo Guerrero who were good friends with him, but also are forced to acknowledge what he did, or people like Kurt Angle or Chris Jericho who are forced to acknowledge what he did despite putting on some fantastic matches. Like, that's the other thing that gets tricky. Chris Benoit was legitimately fantastic in the ring. Like, if he was terrible in the ring, it'd be a lot easier to sweep under the rug and say, yeah, we're just gonna totally ignore this guy, forget about this guy, and nobody talk about this guy anymore. But Benoit was so legitimately fantastic, and that's what makes it even harder to try to separate the two, but who the actions from the actual performer. But at the end of the day, like I said, he did do what he did, and that can't be ignored, and that can't be overshadowed. And some have tried. David Benoit, for whatever reason, wants them to acknowledge his history, that being the history of Chris Benoit, which is a very unfortunate thing. And I do kind of feel for David Benoit. Like, he has been dealt such an unfortunate hand. He probably won't have a career in the wrestling industry, not just because of his last name, but because of the uncanny resemblance to his father, or which would be very hard to ignore. Or and I do wonder if AEW will bring him into the fold. Obviously, he took the picture with Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, and Chris Jericho, all of who lost at Dynasty, by the way, which is kind of crazy. But I don't think it'll go further beyond that. I don't unfortunately, it never will for David Benoit because of what his father did. But uh, but at the same time, trying to campaign to get his father's legacy acknowledged, with as tainted and as twisted as it is, yeah, good luck with that. But I say all that to say, will Chris Benoit ever be in the WWE Hall of Fame? No. Should he be in the WWE Hall of Fame? In my opinion, considering everything, I would say no. Because to acknowledge one, you would have to acknowledge the other. You can't separate it on this one, or at least it'd be extremely hard to, in a celebratory way, as the Hall of Fame often is. So I don't think it can be done. But that's kind of just my opinion, and I think that's where that stands. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this video, this discussion. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on those post notifications so you know every single time I upload a video so you never miss an upload. And let me know in the comment section below, do you think Chris Benoit will ever be in the WWE Hall of Fame? Be sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments. And is there anything that I missed in terms of like points or relevant info? I would love to hear you guys' feedback in the comments. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.